Everyone's heard of Viewtiful Joe, one of the Capcom 5, the Crimson Crusader, the Scarlet's successor. That design is iconic. Even if you never played his games, if you play video games, you know the character from store shelves or Marvel, and at a glance, maybe it never spoke to you, but there's a whole trove of interesting things going on with his series. And I say series, but it's 2 games and some spin-offs. Viewtiful Joe burned so hot, it died in 2 years. Today we're looking back at a masterclass in hardcore action, its sequel, and Capcom's failure to spin a surprising little game into a franchise. So Viewtiful Joe is about movies. It's fundamentally rooted in cinema, and it maintains that thread with tropes and cliches, slathers itself in the concept. Kinda like this. Will KBash survive his encounter with the Dark Overlord? Find out next time on... Oh. Hey Erica, haven't seen you for a while.
Actually, I am the Dark Overlord. And I have... gun.
Oh, motherfucker!
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Viewtiful Joe. His moves are beautiful and he likes to view movies. Beautiful. Nailed it. Yeah, there's the double meaning, V being read as B in Japanese. Viewtiful Joe, at least someone had fun making the thing. It's usually a good sign. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, but I'd rather put it directly in the lineage of Devil May Cry and other character action games. 1, because the game was helmed by Hideki Kamiya, creator of Devil May Cry. 2, Viewtiful Joe will tear your whole scrotum off. It's really hard.
What? That was half my life!
Okay, you know what? Prequel time. The game presents 2 difficulties once you're seated, Kids Mode and Adults Mode. And if you're on PS2, there's a super baby version called Sweet Mode. It's a demented little developer taunt, like, you're not a literal child, are you? You should probably pick Adults Mode. Now all my footage is from Adults Mode because I ran through both main games twice. And if you want to have fun and learn the game, you'll pick Kids Mode first. Going in raw with no knowledge of the controls or available moves, well, that's a torn scrotum. Enough that I'd bet most players would give up and never come back. Viewtiful Joe is good, but it's like spanking and choking, right? A little painful, really pays off. Who is Joe anyway? What's this guy's deal? Well, Buddy's clearly shooting out of his league with Sylvia, his girlfriend. Now, most reviewers would probably go, whoa, he's turning his hot girlfriend down? What the heckarino? But Joe's a true Sigma male, okay? He likes his movies and he's got his boundaries. He's not swayed by your feminine wiles, Harpy. Joe's just a little gremlin guy. I mean, I can relate. I too scamper upstairs on all fours. And then they were sucked into TV land! What? If it wasn't clear, story is the functional C-plot of Viewtiful Joe, okay? He's in movie land, he spars with his hero, Captain Blue, and becomes his successor with that famous catchphrase. Flashback to thousands of American kids looking up what does henshin mean on the June of 2003. Gameplay is what really matters here. Viewtiful Joe is tight, consistent in its packaging and delivery of challenge. I mean, not on Kids Mode, right? You can kill half the bosses in a single combo if you know what you're doing.
Kids Mode is stupid.
But there's enough to learn about between the stages, bosses, even buttons to justify that playthrough, so don't rush yourself. Viewtiful Joe is divided into chapters of 3 segments, 3-act structure, if you will. You pummel your way through each stage, pulling off sweet combos, collecting coins, completing puzzles. It's attuned simplicity and enjoyable to replay. There's always something to do better next time. True to the 3-act structure conceit, stages tend to begin with an easy section, ramp up the difficulty for round 2, and end with a boss. Just what you'd expect. And the stages are rife with detail, decadent and eye-catching. Is that a titty bar? Nintendo! You can see why Joe was made red, with the amount of detail in the background, the general stubbiness of Joe's moves, and the game's tendency to swarm the player with enemies. It'd be easy to lose Joe otherwise. Anyone who's played 4-player Smash Bros. Knows this, but his particular colors, red, white, and pink, make him impossible to miss. Now, Joe's got a couple tricks. First, hey Joe, what that tongue do? Yo, who what they pussy ate? I'm sorry. Joe uses VFX powers in movie land, the ability to slow time, fast forward, and zoom in. These 3 powers, and particularly slow time, are used not only in combat, but to solve stage puzzles, like heightening the water level, making propeller blades stop, creating gigantic water drops. No, they're not all sensical, but that isn't the point, okay? If you're gonna start cinema-sinsing Viewtiful Joe, so help me. How the hell did the robot knock the other robot through the screen? That's not possible. Why would the robot pick Joe up just because the other has Sylvia? Why would anyone think he's a hero? How exactly does one walk through a movie screen into movie land? That's physically impossible. Oh, and any special powers are tied to a gauge that expands as you collect these little blue things during a chapter. It means you have to power yourself up by engaging with the level design. And if I made all those assets, yeah, I'd want players looking at them instead of speedrunning through. It's for the best too. More gauge means more power. Like, slow time will let you matrix dodge mostly anything. Just be careful you don't use it all and lose your power. VFX powers aren't the only moves you unlock during play. Like Devil May Cry before it, you earn points in the stage by being good, and spend them on necessary upgrades and extra lives. I said Viewtiful Joe is difficult, and it is, but the context for difficulty is control complexity and behavior recognition. Once you master your moveset, know what enemies do, what trick kills every enemy, and what the bosses are gonna do, you're untouchable. But it takes a very long time to get that good. Your basic combat options are little baby punches and kicks, a dodge you can tilt up or down and hold indefinitely, jumps, aerial versions of your other moves, and VFX powers. There's no blocking here, okay? Dodging is necessary to stun enemies, which is how you properly start combos. I mean, yeah, slow dodge exists, but it's limited use, so it's an aggressive system, and since your hitboxes are so puny, you gotta look enemies dead in the eyes before you beat the tar out of them. It's risky, it's frustrating, but it's incredible to master. And Joe does have a couple projectiles, but you gotta pay for them, so they're not the default. It's worth noting that you're tutorialized pretty well throughout the game as you're drip-fed new combat options, and in fact, you gain the bulk of your basic moveset early into the second chapter. The trouble lies in mastering the controls. Transparency is necessary, but so is repetition, and a few of your moves either don't have immediately obvious benefits, aren't called for by gameplay nearly enough, or require strange button combinations that'll leave you feeling that exact kind of frustrated when you're stuck on a particular link in a fighting game combo trial. You know the feeling. I really can't stress it enough. I miss input frequently on my adults mode playthrough of both Viewtiful Joe 1 and 2 because it's fast and complex, overwhelming to learn. Punching, kicking, those moves are easy. Tap a button, done. But those moves on their own dramatically fall off in value. It's most efficient to wait for an enemy attack and dodge up or down in the indicated direction, which will stun the enemy, then slow time and hit everyone you can before your VFX gauge runs out. And you might be thinking, well, that sounds like the game encourages passive play, and that doesn't sound all that engaging. Yup! Though to be fair, enemies swing immediately once the game knows you're dodging the right way. So maybe it's not passive at all. Proactive reactivity, there's a word for this, but I do not know it. It'll net you points anyway, and it's enough for many enemies, though some necessitate VFX. You're pretty commonly asked, not by the game, but by the design, to use zoom in, your strongest power that cows regular enemies and opens new moves, a spin kick, a torpedo jump, and a rapid jab. The kick is niche, but sometimes useful. In fact, most zoom in moves are, but the jab, specifically the slow-down zoom-in jab, is the strongest move in the game, pound for pound. It demolishes bosses. It crushes regular enemies. And while it's less incredible on higher difficulties, it remains mandatory because it's so powerful. And it's frustrating watching such a beautiful game, in terms of art direction, demand the player make use of something that detracts from the visuals so much. Like, you gotta understand, this game is hard as nails. Like, really, really hard.
Okay, that's bullshit.
So you're gonna want to stock up on powerful moves, and you're forced into this play pattern that takes 3 inputs to greenlight, that being the slow time button, the zoom in button, and the punch button. And yeah, you're doing damage, but half your punches are whiffing because of the stupid hitboxes, and you can't even look at the sweet background because all you can see is Joe. I don't want to see Joe. You seen that Marvel vs. Capcom art? What the hell is that cape, bro? That's a shriveled phallus! And it's doubly frustrating that so much difficulty is curbed by just knowing some things. Normally I'd be happy knowing the tricks, but for example, uppercuts and aerial moves are this one enemy type's weakness, and this innocuous little tidbit makes it so easy. And nothing indicates as much. Uppercuts and aerial moves have very little place in the game. The enemy type it's based on isn't weak to aerial stuff at all. Same goes for these gorilla bots. The point is to wait for their Blanca ball, okay, their little anti-air attack, so you can run up and slow down zoom in punch. And if you don't know that trick, they take easily 20 times longer to kill. That's Viewtiful Joe in a nutshell. If you pick this up, you're gonna be pissed off, tired, annoyed, all that good stuff, because you'll be whiffing attacks in slow-mo. Because Jesus, guys, couldn't you extend the boxes a little? Because you'll be stuck on certain enemies, certain sections. Sometimes it'll be an input error, and other times it'll be a pattern recognition issue. It's a game that's constantly highlighting your failures. On the flip side, that makes the game compelling. You can optimize. You might have been pissed about missing your slide kick until you learn you can instantly cancel the kick with a punch and cancel the punch with another slide kick, doubling your travel distance. That nerdy tech junk, start picking that up and you'll love Viewtiful Joe. Don't, and whoops, I broke it! And that tenuous hold on the player is highlighted perfectly, so perfectly, by the F5. The game only really stops for its story before and after boss fights, more or less. Let's see, we got Batman. Nope, we got Dinosaur.
Yo, man. What's up?
Hideki, man. What was that about? We got the Shark, Viewtiful Joe's clone, and Dante. Sorry, Alistair. Like Dante's sword, Alistair. Couldn't help yourself, huh, Kamiya? Look at this, he even does the moves! Oh, and this guy, who you only fight once at the end. He's special. On Adults mode, anyway, the bosses are not super easy. Game's as tight as Joe's jumpsuit. You need to be on the ball, like the jumpsuit, all the time, or you're getting crushed. Sometimes it's a matter of camera angle. You'll be hit by off-screen attacks or not have enough vision to make tactical moves. But to be fair to Hideki Kamiya, that featured pretty heavily in DMC1. And to be fair to me, I'm using a widescreen patch for the game on my Nintendo GameCube PC edition, and it's still possible to get hit by off-screen stuff. Hope you like audio cues, bro. Let's go! And when we talk about the context of difficulty, we've got to table the checkpoint discussion. Half the reason this game is hard is inconsistent checkpoints. We're talking saves between almost every stage. Right before the first boss, for example, but not before the second boss, Hulk Davidson. So if you die, you have to redo that level before him. Why? Oh yeah, they'll give you the shop, but no save. Why? I ended up abusing bot lives and the Take 2 item, a second chance consumable thing, to scrape by. It is not a joke, and putting it right at the end, with no checkpoints or anything, is amazingly sadistic. Epic level trolling, bro. Thank you for this gift. I mean, I have it on good word that people quit this game thanks to this segment. What else is there to say? Well, the point about optimization from earlier still applies. That bat boss is a pain if you tackle him without tricks. The fight wants you to hit him, break him into smaller bats, and kill the bats, but this strat doesn't do much damage, and turns the fight into a grinder. So eventually you learn that either boomerangs or the red hot kick knock him down, and you can slow down zoom and punch the guy for greater efficiency. In fact, most of the bosses have at least some wiggle room for how the player handles the battle, and between slowdown dodge, a little practice, and some extra lives, it's all possible. Though, Fire Leo, let me tell you, most bosses have wiggle room, but this guy caps off the boss rush and requires this super specific set of actions you'd probably never figure out in a couple runs. You'll just kill your whole boss rush, start over. We're talking fast forward punch to light yourself on fire. Break his fire shield with any attack because you're on fire. Break the shield he's holding. Then consecutively dodge 5 times to dizzy the guy. Then do the damage. It's insanity. I could hear Kamiya shriek laughing on the other side of the ocean. If anything, the game suffers from its own length in this regard. Viewtiful Joe is 5 hours long, give or take, and I think it could be even shorter if they cut some superfluous sections. I like my games fast, but with the breadth of knowledge the player needs, and the amount of challenge squeezed into what could be an evening binge session. Game's not doing itself any favors with more casual players, right? Calls him stupid, throws him a book, makes him struggle, kicks him between the legs 6 times. What do you say about that? It is awesome for someone like me who makes a living playing games. It is awesome for someone who's got nothing else going on, who's on forums telling people the game's easy. Oh yeah, dude, you're so right. It's so easy. By the way, full off. Anyway, Joe forgot about Sylvia the entire time. Welcome to the doghouse, bro, but how does this masterwork end?
Sylvia, I am your father, Sylvia.
Oh. Boo! Is nothing sacred anymore? What the hell is this? At least it ends with a boss fight you've done 3 times prior. That's proper falling action. Respect. Viewtiful Joe's always providing a challenge between its endless attempts to push the player to new heights, its tricks and secrets, its surprisingly in-depth combat system, and its charming characters. It's an extremely rewarding experience. Yes, I've been swayed. Look at Joe. He's just a little guy. Just a little f***ing guy. Ah, you won my heart, you bastard. And the game met with critical acclaim, sold well. I mean, not enough to meet projections, but due to its low budget, the world was set for a sequel. What's that line? Sequels are always worse?
You're alive?
Yes, because in truth, I was the Dark Overlord.
But actually, I am the Dark Overlord.
No, it is I who am the Dark Overlord, and also, too, I'm your father.
What the fuck?
Oh, Viewtiful Joe 2, Electric Boogaloo, V-Joe the Second. How you gonna build on that last game? Actually, funny story, Kamiya was tied up with other projects and wasn't able to direct the sequel, which I understand he's still extremely butthurt about, to the point that he doesn't acknowledge it years later. And fair enough, you put your favorite things into your work, create something successful from nothing, and can't even steer the wheel for round 2? It's gotta be rough. And like you might expect from a game losing its director, the sequel's mostly the first. Again, it maintains all major mechanics, systems, structure, but something feels off. We'll start with the story, the one thing Kamiya demanded control over to maintain continuity. Is that a joke? I'm sorry, these stories are not great. You're on a quest to recover the Rainbow Oscars. Okay, they might be classed as light satire of Hollywood, but they don't meaningfully subvert tropes or anything. I think the only rogue element is Joe himself, because he isn't cool, and that's backed by Kamiya, by the way. Everyone knows Joe's a weirdo, but that's it. The game's one major addition is Sylvia, Joe's girlfriend, as a playable character. Her hero name is Sexy Sylvia. How much you want to bet this game can't pass the Bechdel test? It's insane. They took Sylvia from the
my hero
girl in the first game to I am literally pointing my gun at my boyfriend for being a jerk. The dynamic is totally borked. Joe used to be a funny guy, always screwing around, but now he's constantly like, yeah, the old ball and chain here, total bitch. Their interactions aren't even playful, it's just foul. You know, that title's a bit of a stretch. Maybe they could have gone with Viewtiful Joe and Woman, right? Joe and the Femoid. Okay, I'm done snarking. There's a pretty common sentiment online that 2's difficulties are shifted down, so Adults mode on 2 is like Kids in 1. Absolutely not. Don't ever speak to me again. Game's hard. And we'll go into why later, but let's do the tour. How did the sequel shake things up?
What you say? I know, Sergeant. I believe. You fight me now. Prepare to die.
The stages are fresh, but the concepts remain. Joe interacts with puzzles using his powers, and occasionally Sylvia does too. Overall, it's hard to fault the stages, because they're pretty, they're well made. They're not all that different from the first game. If anything, they make more use of vertical space than the original, which often felt cramped, but that was mostly the camera angles business, and there's still not much going on in the sky. It's superfluous space. The stages are cut up into threes like before, and the designers constantly mix the challenge presented to the player, from difficult fights to interesting puzzles, to heinous bullshit.
Just leave the garbage out of your game.
Viewtiful Joe 2 feels exactly like a sequel should, at least for a while. After all, it's more Joe. You collect points like before, upgrade your moves like before, do everything just like before. What could go wrong? The first inkling that something's up comes from Sylvia herself. I imagine, outside of big series fans and bobblehead women likers, Jesus, that nobody actually swaps to Sylvia for any meaningful length of time except for fun. The game requires her for several puzzles, but those are passing moments. They come and go, and you're left with what feels like a second, less useful character, like a full tier down from Joe. Right, we're talking Captain Falcon to Little Mac, bro. Joe's moves are the same. The game was designed for him, and it's really apparent once you start playing. Sylvia has no punches, just her gunshots, which combo at range, and there's utility in that, but they're laggier than Joe's punches, don't string nicely on the ground like Joe, who's more aggressive by design. Her kicks are on par with Joe's, but like we established in the first section, the most powerful move in Viewtiful Joe is the slow-down zoom-in punch. Sylvia doesn't have it, instead getting this Tekken-ass shoulder tackle or whatever, but it's worthless by comparison. Disgustingly slow. She has some of Joe's good moves, and not his best move. And because she's used for puzzle solving, they had to give her unique powers. But since the gamepad has limited buttons, she lost fast forward, which was useful in 1 for dealing mass damage to a stunned group, and gained this triple up attack. And yeah, it gives her a lightning buff, yeah, it does more damage, but it just can't compete with Joe. So let's spell this out clearly. Viewtiful Joe 1 is an incredible, if frustrating, action game masterclass. The big addition to 2, the whole selling point of this sequel, is a big ol' Forgive the vulgarity. And I originally thought that certain enemies in 1 were kinda dumb because they required a single trick to master, but in a game with this much going on, there's satisfaction in that simplicity. Certain enemy types were revamped for the sequel. Gorilla bots became aliens. Dear God. And while they've got a similar combat pattern, they do a lot of other things, including grappling the player and creating minions. Even the big attack you're supposed to punish has movement tacked onto it. And these sound like small changes, but they warp the dynamic of the battle, create frustration where there should be none. Enemies that used to be fun, like these cowboys whose bullets you'd reflect, turned into laser guys, a laser that you can neither reflect nor dodge. In this case, simplifying the fight made it more annoying to deal with. It's hard to tell what they were thinking coming off 1, because as tough as it was, the first was pretty darn perfect. They did learn one lesson though. Fixing the checkpoint system. That's right, folks, it's time for the Fucker 5 Redux! Boss design in 2 took a fat nosedive into the dirt. Maybe you'll think that's hyperbolic, but I've got a pretty good case. First, though, there's something more important at hand. Boss battles and the plot in general. I'm still shocked Kamiya wanted his name on the writing. It really cannot be stressed enough that Joe, this time around, mostly complains to the bosses about Sylvia, like, my girlfriend's such a bitch. Like he's so bad, he wants to put it in a robot. Grease the gears, if you will. Dude, what is going on with you?
Yeah, let's be friends, Rachel. Give me your number or something. Or not.
You're awful in this game. Where's the pep? Where's the fire? What's going on? But don't let this fool you into thinking the other characters are endearing. Take the first boss, for example.
This is Sergeant John of the 5th Panzer Division, 1st Reconnaissance Regiment, 2nd Platoon.
Okay, hey, shut it up.
As far as everybody was concerned, I won, but this time, no, this time is different. This is a complete and total defeat. I'm distraught, demoralized.
Damn, they really did overtalking as a gimmick on 2 bosses, jeez. But what's incredible in terms of thematic consistency is they brought that overtalking, that unnecessary space, into the gameplay. Now that's some gameplay narrative coherency, bro! The first boss comes back at least 4 times in different contexts. It's super annoying during play, but even worse than that, he's got no big damage windows during his proper fight. No stun and unload moment, so you kinda have to chip away at the guy during his recovery frames. And they compounded that misery with tons of projectiles, fire barrels, things that force you to play defensive and mindful, which is good for an action game in theory, but sucks any kind of fun out of the battle. It's weird for the game to compound its own proclivity towards passive play. I mean, the Dino boss in 1 would at least fling himself into a wall, or you could break his weapon and you could capitalize in those moments. Not here, and this is the first boss. Even the Aztec boss, at least on first pass, lacks a meaningful damage window unless you abuse the esoteric character swap charge attack, something you never use in normal play. And generally, he flies around, invulnerable to attack. Unnecessarily long and frustrating battles. Say what you will about the first game's bosses, but at least they had the decency to kill you quick. But you know, it's not that dramatic. Cameo Leon here is highly exploitable if you know what you're doing. But the game ain't helping any. Probably take more than a few runs to figure out where he's stunnable. It even has the goal to port the Fire Leo fight over, even though it's his brother contextually. And yeah, it looks awesome. He's the best fight in the game, but he's on that Viewtiful Joe 1 design anyway. What do you expect? The other returning boss is Alistair, and yes, he's cool. Kinda wish we could play as him instead, but you know, it's weird. I feel like there was this other game where you would unlock playable characters by beating progressively higher difficulties. Anyone know what game I'm thinking of? They gave him the second form to drag the fight out. So, you can leave now.
You're kidding, right? Oh, come on, no!
Even the ending manages to fumble what 1 did so well, where 1 ended on Captain Blue, a boss the player fights 3 separate times prior, turning the final fight into proper falling action, something you can handle. 2 ends with your dad.
Hey, is that you, Joe?
Holy shit. So yeah, Gabagoolio here turns into Shredder X Virgil, or whatever, and cuts you down in a blink. The fight sucks. It's brutal. I mean, good on them for acquiring Sylvia occasionally, I guess, where 1 was brutal until the very end, 2 ramps up and ends on the teabag, ends on the Ballbuster Supreme. Y'all remember the ending of DMC 1, where the game suddenly swapped genres and it's totally obnoxious unless you've done it before a few times? It's almost like that, except it's in genre, and it wasn't directed by Hideki Kamiya. It's the big takeaway from 2, where 1 was notched, tightened, fresh, and forgivable. 2 languishes in dead space, lessens the challenge but increases the frustration. It'll give you a battle, but it rarely leaves you satisfied, and it's reflected in the reception. 2 never hit the first game's heights, won the same affection, or sold the same number of copies 1 did. Strategy Wiki doesn't even have the list of enemies in 2. But there's all the first game's entries. Deafening. Volumes and pictures. It's fairly common in games for a successful IP to be milked for low-budget spin-off revenue, and that's exactly what happened to Viewtiful Joe. Apparently, Capcom decided to spin the one mostly successful game into a franchise. Viewtiful Joe Double Trouble, an okay transliteration of a high-quality action game to the split screen. Though I think its existence implies that somebody, somewhere, thought that the audience for Joe was kids who liked the designs, as opposed to the real audience, hardcore action gamers. This ain't it. Viewtiful Joe Red Hot Rumble, a crushingly average Smash-like that no one remembers and nobody bought. But hey, you can play Alistair and Jet Black. Why are the side characters so much cooler than Joe, man? That's some way to handle franchise optics, Jesus. Viewtiful Joe the anime, Viewtiful Joe the manga, Viewtiful Joe in the console version of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, Viewtiful Joe in Marvel, baby! Some of this stuff is fondly remembered, but it's questionable if the series ever had franchise potential anyway. The designs are appealing in that weird, bobble-headed, excessively shredded man-baby way, but taking something with adult elements, wrapped in cartoony visuals, laden with immaturity and cliché, it's hard to tell who they were selling to. Kids, sure, but how many of them pulled through adults mode or even want a sequel? The best in its series sold okay, because it was a high-quality Kamiya action game, because it was new and different, and everything else went from cutting edge to a bleeding wound in the flick of a knife. The games imply a trilogy, and we never got that game. Something Kamiya still wants to put a wrap on. Shoot, he's even confirmed certain characters from Viewtiful Joe are present in the Wonderful 101, his new age masterpiece. But for now, Viewtiful Joe's stuck in unsuccessful franchise hell. It'd take a lot of letters to resurrect, and I don't think people care. And it is a charming series. I have to stress this. It might not look like much, but if you get through the easy modes first, it really is a fun little way to pass some time. So we'll remember the good parts, the action, the humor, the passion. Viewtiful forever, baby. Hey, it's KBash. Special thanks goes out to my $4 patrons, whose names are on the screen. The show's on its way somewhere good thanks to the community's generosity. And special thanks goes out to my extra generous patrons who are... A Dead Diehard, Adam Welsh, Alexa, Andy Blarg, Arch, Basement Dweller, BZ Soul, Boha, Brios, Cal, can I cuss on here? Captain Wave, Captain Blasted, Caesar T, Cordant, Christo009, Cody Golden, Corgi the Lad, Couch MOBA, Crater, CW Glassworks, Kyle Lapreed, Cyrus, Daddy Dagoth, Dakota Storm Jones, Dondium, Danky Stank Swanky Make, Dara, David Castillo, Decode, Dutch Dejima Dealer, Dylan Coffee, 8-Bit Funk, Elias, LPO, Elsa, Enix, Aesthetico, Everstone Isle, Exa, Fupa Saiyan, Frankenstitch, Glyph Seeker, Guard Corey, Gucci Plant, Hatsune Miku's Crack House, Harkaj, Heman Gamin Station, Hexmex, Huey, Ingenious Clown, I Punched a Sandwich, Irradiated Cherries, Ice Kyle, It's Time to Sue, Ivy Ruth Langley, Jame, Jason Lasky, Jaden, Jdaeus, John Weber, Joke Frog, Keegan Too Cool, Clocked, Creighton, Crazy Dark Chocolate, Kais, Latrix, Laundry Mom, Lego Sid, Lon, Low Fat Mogert, Lucas Boyd, Lucky McSchmucky, Magical Madman, Markules, Maximilian Wolfgang Niver, Mike DeVR, Milky Moo Official, Mr. Dodongo, Niranu, Nito Torpedo, Old Burgle, Old Man Cranberry, Only LK, Gplant, Pandemic Cowboy, PK Gaming, Potato Gaming HD, Quasar McDougal, Quillworth, Quinn, Reasonable Willow,
Reggie Rodriguez,
Sagitrash, Siren Smells Good,
Salty Smasher,
Sam Vertigo,
Sekai no Awarida,
Shod, Silver Bear 909,
Simp, God,
Sleepy Wabbit, Sockdolager, Space Lizard, Special Children, Spooky Grimalkin, Squishword, Starbound, Sublime Cataclysm, Super Katsanova,
Super Sandwich Guy,
The Big Bubby, The Salt Knight, Thick Dick Mystic,
Thrips Heartrop,
Timid the Writer, Travis Edwards, Trevingsley, Twiddle Chungus, Vid,
Venom,
Vice Pup, Viewers Like You,
Vic.
Waposa, Weeb Trash,
Well, shit.
Where Am I? Help! Winter Solstice, Zanny Tanner,
Yay, Kundo!
Young Citrus, Zachary Livesey,
Zachary V,
Zanaso,
Zane the Impure, Zane the Pure,
Zed Slayer Gamer, Zilvlin Ray, Cyberbunk.
If you'd like to help support the show and make it even better, check out my Patreon. We've got all kinds of goals and lots of rewards in store. Stay tuned for more. KBash out.